Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Tim's IT Straight Talk. First, let me call out, if you find that my video is fuzzy or weird, could you let me know in the comments? If you've been following this YouTube series, it's very informal. The whole point of this Tim's IT Straight Talk is for me to sit down at my desk, which I do every workday, pop on the screen recorder and just talk in a completely unscripted, unfiltered way. Well, minimally scripted. I do have a couple bullet notes on my monitor that I want to make sure I talk about. Anyway, that's all preliminary. The subject of today's session is learnings from AWS, Amazon Web Services technical interview. A number of years ago, I'm just going to pull off the top of my head, maybe 7 years ago, I interviewed with Amazon Web Services for a cloud solution architect position. Maybe it was less than 7 years ago. And I want to talk specifically about the technical interview and my candid impressions. First of all, a disclaimer, because it's been at least, I would say, 5 years, their hiring practices might have shifted, but somehow I kind of doubt it. What they did in my case is once I passed the initial screening, the HR screening, and they decided that they wanted to do an interview round, at least at that time, this was pre-pandemic, it was face-to-face. So there is a corporate culture difference immediately that I've noticed between Microsoft and AWS. Microsoft fully embraces remote and hybrid and this sort of thing. So my interview rounds with Microsoft have always been over Teams. AWS, no, they want you there on their property. And that really is a theme that came through for me that I didn't like. Let me speak more about that. The actual tech interview is great. In fact, I'll always be grateful to the people who did my interview. And there were a number of, there must have been 8 people, including 1 or 2 group grilling sessions. So it was an intensive interview round. And the reason why I admire Amazon Web Services in their approach, at least in my case, they successfully found the perimeter of my knowledge. I went in not cocky by any stretch of the imagination, but confident in my competence. And I knew that it wasn't a question of these folks are trying to embarrass me. Fortunately, I was able to sidestep those. They're common and understandable pitfalls to be like, oh, I don't want to look foolish. I don't want to look. I see that as illusion now, so I'm able to detach from that. And I thought these people are doing their jobs. They want to know exactly where the borders of my skill set are so they can probe. And what they did is when they found a weak spot, when they hit the edge of my knowledge, or if they started getting closer to the edge of my knowledge on a given subject, and we're talking in the weeds details about hybrid cloud networking and identity federation and that kind of stuff, when they see that it's a little soft, they drill right in there. And I love that. That's how I am as an analyst. I think like that as well, because I really want to probe. I want to have as three-dimensional a picture of the candidate's skill set as possible. But unfortunately, I didn't get offered the cloud solution architect position. My career might have gone in a vastly different direction if I did, because again, this is all the world according to Tim Warner. You understand that. I'm not speaking for anybody or anything other than moi. But my strong impression was Amazon feels like a closed ecosystem, very proprietary and internal. I had learned that they really clamp down on moonlighting, and you're not going to clamp down on my moonlighting. I've turned down full-time positions when they weren't comfortable with my moonlighting. I love to moonlight. It's what I do. I'm not going to moonlight in a way that violates my employer's policies, obviously. But I'm going to make sure at hire that they understand that I have these gigs on the side that are valuable to me for many reasons, and it's a non-negotiable. So anyway, at Amazon at that time, if one of the interviewers said no, then it was a no for the candidate. And I don't think that's a good idea. At the time, I tried to see it through their eyes. Their thought is, if one person has a no, I mean, it's just as simple as that. And I just don't like that. It makes me feel a little bit creeped out because, again, it's almost like a groupthink exercise. Unless we all feel the same way about this candidate, we're going to say no. Can we mold and shape this candidate to be exactly what we want? That is disturbing. Now, again, I'm getting a little bit into speculation territory because I've not worked for Amazon Web Services. I've seen people who are really who were bright stars in the technical community, and particularly the Microsoft tech community, and then they go to AWS and they disappear. No more public contributions. It's like when it feels like, this is my thought, it feels like when you sign on with AWS, you're signing your life away in some ways, and all of your creative juices and output go to them, and there ain't no way that's happening with me. And Microsoft, to their greatest credit, and I can say this definitively because I've worked for Microsoft as a contractor and as a full-time employee, that they are just the opposite. They're about empowering. I know empowering is kind of a cliche buzzword, but they really are about empowering their people to be better humans. Yes, to be better on the job, clearly, but to be a better human in general. Enormous night and day difference. It's almost like I think of it in my visual mind as being in a stuffy attic that has no air circulation and you're breathing your own farts and that kind of stuff. That's Amazon. And then Microsoft, you're in this open field where you've got pavilions. You can get out under the sun, out of the sun or rain if you want to, but you've got green fields to stretch out and interact. That's how I see things. So I'm deeply grateful in retrospect that I didn't work out at AWS. What wound up happening with that particular engagement is they came back and they said it's a no on cloud solution architect, which was really disappointing because my whole reason for applying there is that I wanted to dive in headfirst into the AWS ecosystem in a technical role. But they came back with, you're a better fit for AWS certification and education, which makes sense. The best way I can rationalize it is that all of the people who interviewed me said yes, but they said yes to different things. And because they didn't have consistency, they defaulted to this. I don't know. That's the best I can come up with. So I could have had, I'm sure, a nice career with AWS certification and all of that. And truly, I am a technical trainer and author, so I understand their viewpoint, but it wasn't what I wanted. So I needed to ask myself, how important is my self-integrity? And it is, can't quantify it. It's tops. So I'm not going to work someplace where I'm unhappy. And I'm certainly not going to work someplace where I'm not appreciated. And I'll never work for someplace unless I'm forced to work for a place that has that closed, stuffy environment to it. It's bullshit. Well, okay, there you have it. Unfiltered view. Anything else here wrapping up? Diverted. Yeah, that's really about it. Anything in closing? I found the AWS to be more intimidating than Microsoft, probably because of the closedness, the circle the wagons, the we're part of an exclusive club kind of deal, and inner sanctum. That is not my bag, let me tell you what. When I feel that, and this is coming from someone whose special interests is cults. So I've done, I don't know how many thousands of hours of research into cults. And the AWS thing is a little bit culty. And I'll just leave you with this. I'm snarky about Apple when I teach classes sometimes. I mean, look, I've got an iPhone. I've got a watch. Am I a hypocrite? Well, you decide. Let me tell you. I mean, Apple, if you can afford it, because not everybody can, is fine. And it all works together. So if you stay within Apple's walled garden, oh, you're a happy camper. It's worth it for me because fortunately, I'm privileged enough to be able to afford it. And I like that it works. But as far as my opinion toward Apple, I don't have any insight there. I've never interviewed with Apple. I've interacted with them quite a bit, including one job I had in the past. I started an Apple authorized repair shop at a school I worked at. That was pretty cool, actually. But again, you know what I got from Apple? Tight supply chain control. As you probably know, Apple controls not only their software intellectual property, their operating systems and productivity software, but also all of their hardware. They make all of their own stuff. So they control with an iron fist their whole supply chain. And the reason it infuriates me is that now we're in 2024. It's about internet standards. It's about being able to communicate regardless of whether you're on an Apple piece of hardware or a Samsung piece of hardware, whether you're on a Linux, Mac, or Windows desktop PC. It shouldn't matter. And most companies in the world have gotten that message. In my opinion, for what it's worth, Apple and AWS fall into that closed category. There. See ya.